Hey guys, welcome back to Middle Class Reactions. Today we're going to take a look at the Iranian protest issue. Piers Morgan had on this panel today. We got Glenn Greenwald, Anna Kasparian. I don't know who these two people are. Never seen them before. I know he's some kind of news somebody, and she's a Zionist shill. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. She's insane. But Glenn Greenwald breaks the whole Iranian protesting down very, very well. Especially the argument, which I've been hearing lately, is like, all the people who were anti-Israel and anti what Israel was doing in Gaza sure are quiet. Just as far as my thoughts on that, the reason we're quiet is because, like, yeah, it's Iran. They do terrible things. The difference is my government's not funding it, whereas Israel, my government is not only funding it, but protecting them. So there's the difference. But Glenn Greenwald really breaks this down super well. And then we're going to listen to this one in 20 seconds. She said some just retardism that I think should be highlighted. So yeah, we are going to take a look.
To Iran, and let's start with you, Glenn, on Iran. You know, I posted today something I've just been thinking about this week, which is that there's been a kind of deafening silence from Hollywood. Like the Golden Globes came and went in the middle of all this with no celebrity mentioning the Iranian protesters. Very few high-profile media people who've been very vocal about what's happened, for example, in Gaza, have said anything about it either. And to me, there is a moral hypocrisy and cowardice going on here. And it's linked to the fact that in their heads, they believe this is all benefiting Israel, that Israel's tentacles are clearly involved here in fomenting the protests and encouraging America to take action and so on, which may well all be true. But it doesn't change the fact that it's, to me, it's warped their humanity from queuing up and protesting in large numbers about what's happening in Gaza, quite rightly, but zero complaint or protests or offers of sympathy or empathy to the Iranian protesters. What do you say to that? New Year is all about starting afresh, and today's sponsor will help you to do exactly that.
And again, Glenn's about to break this down super well, but I just want to reiterate, the reason that a lot of us who were super anti-Israel for what was going on in Gaza aren't just out here screeching about what's happening in Iran is because it's like, yeah, it's Iran. They do terrible shit. I mean, it's Iran. What are you going to do? It's the same reason I'm not super vocal about what's going on in the Congo and what's going on in North Korea and what's going on in the UAE and Saudi and all these other places. Is like, I mean, I take that back. We do fund the UAE and Saudi, and we do fund those people, but like, there's terrible things going on everywhere. Especially you look at Africa and some of the areas over there. It's like, I can't call out every single thing that's terrible. I will call out what is terrible that my government is not only funding but also encouraging and protecting, like Israel. What they did in Gaza, we funded it, we protected it, and we protected Israel from retaliation from it. So I think that's the big difference. But Glenn Greenwald explains it super, super well. So I'm gonna let him kind of say this.
I couldn't disagree with that more for two reasons. First of all, Americans protest what their government does because that's what they can influence. They protested the Vietnam War that the U.S. was waging. They protested U.S. support for the apartheid regime of South Africa because that's what the U.S. was doing. They protest the U.S. support and financing and arming of Israel's destruction of Gaza because that was what the United States was doing. The United States isn't supporting Iran. What would these protests? What would their impact be? The reason why people protest is because they want their government to change their policy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think most people understand, although it's completely excluded from Western elite political and media discourse, that the United States and Great Britain love tyranny of this kind. The United States and Great Britain not just do business with, but prop up and keep in power some of the worst, most repressive, savage tyrannies on the planet in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, in Egypt, in all kinds of countries in that region, in Uganda, in Rwanda. Why aren't people going out on the street and protesting that? And nobody asks about that. And I think the reason is because they that the argument here, what's really driving this concern about Iran is not that we're so concerned about repression and tyranny because we're such great humanitarians, because the U.S. has done more to remove democratically elected governments and install dictatorships than the other way around. It's because Iran is viewed as a geopolitical enemy of the United States and Israel, and that's why so few people care about repression in our greatest allies in Saudi Arabia and Egypt and the like. But I think the main one is, the question is, they're protesting U.S. policy when they protest what's going on in Gaza, and the U.S. isn't supporting Iran.
Yeah, look, I would say to that, I'll come to you now, Lisa, but I would say to that, that doesn't stop a Hollywood star standing up in a public platform like the Golden Globes, where they were all supporting, for example, the woman who was shot dead by the ICE officer.
And again, on that note, it's like, and I'm about to be doing a video on this, on the Minneapolis shooting, but it's like, yeah, the reason why people were protesting that, if you are one who disagrees with it, the reason why people protesting that's because the U.S. did it. Like, that happened here. Obviously, people are going to protest it. You know, he's all up in arms about people going Golden Globes not mentioning the Iranian protest, when it's like, our government's not funding it. Why would we? You know, it's like, why? Like Glenn Greenwald said, what's the impact? But yeah, now we're going to listen to this. Yeah, just listen to what she says, because this is actually insane.
They were, a lot of them, supporting still what's happening in Gaza and the Palestinian people. None of them wanted to express public support for the Iranian people. And I was struck by that. So I think you don't have to protest necessarily as publicly offer support. I'm not seeing much of that from the people who've been leading the calls for people to support and show empathy for the Palestinians. Do you feel there is a double standard in the way this is being treated?
Absolutely. There is a huge hypocrisy in the way that most people in the West have even paid attention to what's going on in Iran over the last 2 weeks. In just 3 days, we don't have an exact death toll, but it could be more people than have been killed in Gaza in over the 3 years that we had that war, 2.5 years that we had that war.
So again, she just said that in 3 days, there maybe have been more people killed in the Iranian protests than what's been killed in Gaza in 2.5 years. And again, this is one of those, it reminds me of the Black Lives Matter thing, in the way of like, we were all behind like, hey, this shouldn't have happened to George Floyd. This is terrible. And then the reaction that BLM gave, you know, all white people are racist and all cops are terrible people. And we're like, yeah, like, we were with you at first, but you kind of ran me off. I feel the same way with this kind of stuff. Is like the October 7th thing, the whole world was like, hey, that was terrible. You know, that should not have happened. That was awful. And then Israel goes on to kill 100,000 people nearly. And it's like, all right, well, you lost me. And she just did the same thing. It's like, yeah, I feel bad for the Iranian protesters. I hope them well. You know, we could look at the U.S. maybe should look at supporting them. In what way is debatable, but, you know, we should look at supporting them. And then she comes out and she's like, yeah, more, you know, maybe 70 or 80,000 people, or I don't want to put words in her mouth. The word she said was possibly more people than what's been killed in Gaza. Well, there have been 70 or 80,000 people killed in Gaza. So, and it's like, all right, you lost me, because that's retarded. You know, it's, you just can't, it's like with this kind of thing, you can't just break statistics and just make shit up. But this is where we live. And I hear a lot of people say that, like, oh, Israel didn't have anything to do with this. Well, Mossad themselves, right here, just read this. Here, I will do. That's what you want to read. On Monday, the Mossad used his Twitter account in Farsi to encourage Iranians to protest against the Iranian regime. Nothing wrong with that. Telling them that it will join them during the demonstrations. Okay. Go out together into the streets. The time has come, the Mossad wrote, and continued, we are with you, not only from distance and verbally, we are with you in the field. On top of that, Mike Pompeo comes out, Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. So we have Mossad and Mike Pompeo both coming out, just saying that they're involved. Then you have other instances, which is of like, certain, like, fire trucks will be set on fire so they can't go respond to some of the fires that are being started. Like, that's a straight up Mossad tactic. Protesters aren't doing that. You know, and it's like, I don't know how many people have been killed, obviously, in Iran. I have, for the protests, I've seen numbers from 2,000 to 20,000 to, according to that lady, according to this one, possibly 70 or 80,000. And so it's like, are people getting killed in Iran? Yes. Do we know how many? No. Do I think it is? I mean, the Iranian government has came out and confirmed it's around 2,000. So that's kind of what I'm assuming, 2 to 3,000, which is terrible. Don't get me wrong, it's awful. But I'm seeing numbers, like I said, I've seen 2,000, I've seen 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 20,000, and now with her 70 or 80,000. So it's like, it's really reminding me of the arguments that we used to see with Iraq, which is like, oh, they're killing a bunch of civilians over there. We have to intervene. They're gassing their civilians. We have to intervene. Like, guys, we've seen this story before. Even if it's true, let's just say they've killed 4,000 people. Is that worth us going in, putting boots on the ground, bombing Iran, starting an invasion and going to war with them? Which I'm not saying that's what Trump is saying. Not saying that. This is just where this could lead. Because this is domination of escalation. So, like, we strike Iran. Iran can strike a U.S. base with a hypersonic missile. We then strike Iran again. They strike us back. Back and forth it goes. And so it's like, is it worth the 3,000 or 4,000 people, however many? One, is it worth us getting involved in us dying in Iran? No, I don't think so. Is it worth us putting boots on the ground? No. And also, what the U.S. is terrible at is regime change and putting up. We're not even saying we're going to put democracy up. The one guy that they're, the Shah, is who they're, or the son of the Shah is who who the U.S. is floating, putting back in power over there. That's a monarch, and a monarch who was overthrown by the people. So, I don't know. I think it's gonna, if we intervene and we overthrow the Ayatollah, it's probably going to end up like Somalia or Libya or Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria, where it's like we go in and overthrow a government, we don't have a very good backup plan, then it becomes a failed state full of terrorists, and then the entire government is all, oh, how, there's terrorists there, now we have to go intervene. Or you end up with like Syria, where they have a civil war going on, and the leader of Syria, the president, who we put in, was on the top 10 most wanted terrorist lists that the U.S. had. Like, the president of Syria right now, if we would have known where he was in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, we would have sent a SEAL team in there and, went and sent him to Sky Daddy. So I don't see this going anywhere good. The U.S. does not have a good track record of this, and we've never done it successfully. Since World War II, there's not been one time we've done this successfully. So we're going to see. We are going to see. As more stuff comes out, I'll be doing videos on it. The one thing I do see a lot of people saying right now is like, oh, the U.S. is going to strike Iran, in the next 48 hours. Here's one thing you got to remember. We don't have any battle groups anywhere around Iran right now. So we're probably not going to strike Iran. Now, what is probably going to happen is Israel's going to strike Iran. That would not shock me. Israel's doing it on the U.S. behalf, but without carrier battle groups in the region, we're not going to strike them. If you want to know when something's happening, follow the battle groups. Like in Venezuela, we had 6 battle groups off the Venezuelan coast. Follow the battle groups, and you'll know when something's about to happen. But that's all I got for you on this one, guys. Like, share, subscribe. It really does help me a lot, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.